Imagine driving through a brand new luxury subdivision where the streetlights are glowing, the lawns are perfectly manicured, but as you look closely at the windows, there is complete darkness. There are no cars in the driveways, no furniture in the living rooms, and no families building a life. Oregon's housing market, once the undisputed crown jewel of the Pacific Northwest migration boom, has quietly transformed into a landscape of financial ghost towns. If you are holding property in this state, the artificial energy of the last few years has completely evaporated, leaving behind a severe financial hangover that is systematically destroying equity. The curiosity you should have right now isn't just about why home prices are softening, but why thousands of homes across this beautiful state are sitting completely vacant, untouched, and unoccupied for months on end. Why are Wall Street investors and local landlords quietly dumping their portfolios at a massive loss? Subscribe to Tax Hack Pro. We follow the money, the municipal tax data, and the hidden financial traps that the mainstream real estate industry refuses to explain. Hit that subscribe button right now so you can protect your equity and understand the forensic data before the next economic avalanche hits your zip code. Today, we're taking you on a deep dive financial investigation inside the 10 Oregon cities where vacancy rates are climbing the absolute fastest in 2026. Pay close attention to the number one spot on this list because it is experiencing an urban real estate death spiral that is rewriting the rules of property investing on the West Coast. Let's audit the collapse. Number 10, Medford. Southern Oregon's once celebrated growth story has taken a sharp and highly uncomfortable turn. Only a few short years ago, this city was welcoming new residents so rapidly that large-scale developers were completely caught off guard. Between 2020 and 2022, median home values climbed dramatically from an affordable baseline of $315,000 to more than $480,000. Buyers arriving from California frequently paid entirely in cash, determined to secure a property regardless of the underlying appraisal math. But by 2026, that unstoppable momentum has clearly frozen. Across Jackson County, active listings have jumped nearly 30% compared to the previous year. Properties are now lingering on the market for 80 to 110 days on average. Desperate sellers have been forced to trim up to $45,000 off their original asking prices, effectively erasing their pandemic-era equity gains. Affordability has become the clear, insurmountable fault line. The median household income in the Medford area hovers stubbornly around $70,000. At today's strict mortgage rates, financing a $500,000 home means brutal monthly payments exceeding $3,200. And that is before factoring in the hidden killers of real estate, property taxes, and insurance. In southern Oregon's wildfire-prone zones, the risk models have been completely rewritten. Annual insurance premiums that once averaged $1,800 have surged to $4,000. Builders are feeling this immense pressure as well. To spark demand, developers are rolling out aggressive financial incentives, including $25,000 price cuts and heavy closing cost credits. Even with these concessions, buyer traffic remains noticeably thin, and apartment complexes that once operated at near-perfect occupancy are now reporting vacancy rates exceeding 10%. Number 9, Salem. Oregon's state capital doesn't usually steal the national spotlight, but in 2026, it is drawing intense forensic attention. While Salem never experienced the hyper-explosive surge seen in places like Bend, home prices here still rose at an aggressive pace that stretched local affordability to its absolute breaking point. The median home price climbed from the low $300,000s to nearly $460,000 in just 36 months. Now, those elevated prices are running headfirst into the cold, hard limits of economic reality. Housing supply in Salem has bloated, growing by roughly 22% compared to exactly this time last year. Three-bedroom homes are sitting untouched for up to 100 days, and substantial price cuts have transitioned from being rare occurrences to standard operating procedure. The commercial rental market shows even clearer signs of an economic cooling. High-density apartment communities are reporting severe vacancy rates between 11 and 14%. These are vacancy levels the city hasn't experienced in more than a full decade. Panicked landlords are rolling out heavy financial incentives like drastically lowered security deposits and complimentary months of base rent just to keep their occupancy numbers steady enough to satisfy their commercial lenders. Meanwhile, property insurance premiums have climbed sharply, deeply compounding the financial pressure on the middle class. Salem previously benefited from buyers fleeing Portland in search of lower prices, but that steady flow has slowed to a trickle. Prospective homeowners are simply skipping Oregon altogether, actively choosing neighboring states where median home prices are significantly less expensive. In 2026, Salem finds itself caught in a brutal, tightening vice of sharply rising ownership costs and heavily softening buyer demand. Number 8, Eugene. For a very long time, Eugene seemed entirely protected from the kind of extreme volatility that other West Coast markets routinely experienced. With the massive University of Oregon anchoring the local economy, housing demand here felt incredibly reliable. Home values in Eugene aggressively surged to nearly $500,000 at their peak. During that historic run-up, aggressive investor interest intensified, especially in neighborhoods closely surrounding the college campus. Out-of-state buyers blindly assumed that student-driven rental demand would provide a stable, bulletproof cash flow for decades to come. Now that foundational assumption is being severely tested. Vacancy is climbing incredibly fast in pockets that were once viewed as zero-risk occupancy zones. Broad enrollment patterns have shifted, hybrid learning models have become permanent, and students are opting for lower-cost housing in nearby communities. In some historically student-focused neighborhoods, actual vacancy rates have surpassed a shocking 15%. The market softness isn't just limited to the rentals near campus. Single-family homes in prime areas are frequently stuck on the market for up to 110 days before attracting any serious offers. Rising, hidden ownership costs are adding a massive new layer of pressure. Many of the older homes purchased during the frantic 2020 to 2022 surge, where buyers completely waived standard home inspections, are now desperately due for significant, high-cost maintenance. We are talking about $15,000 new roofs and deep plumbing repairs. At the exact same time, annual hazard insurance premiums have jumped by 30% or more. Investors who once happily projected strong monthly cash flow are now painfully reassessing their negative numbers and putting their properties back on the open market, further swelling the active supply. What once felt like a consistently stable market now shows the unmistakable, glaring signs of a heavy oversupply. Number 7, Astoria. At a quick glance, Astoria's highly unique coastal character seems perfectly untouched by the broader economic chaos. Elegant Victorian homes still gaze out over the vast Columbia River. Yet, hiding just beneath that picture-perfect exterior, the underlying housing market is showing unmistakable financial stress. From 2020 to 2022, median home prices climbed incredibly sharply to more than $520,000. Prime waterfront properties easily pushed beyond $600,000. Much of that artificial surge was driven by out-of-town second-home buyers and short-term rental investors who were convinced that the explosive demand for Oregon's coastline would remain strong indefinitely. That blind confidence is now being brutally tested by cold math. Deep vacancy is quietly expanding across the premium hillside neighborhoods. Active market listings have swelled by approximately 26% compared to last year. The real killer here is that catastrophic insurance costs are adding immense new pressure to the bottom line. Increased coastal wind exposure concerns and extremely strict FEMA risk assessments have pushed annual property premiums from a manageable $1,500 to a devastating $3,000 or more. When you combine that massive insurance spike with rising property taxes and the relentless upkeep required for aging historic homes in a harsh marine environment, the total ownership expenses have climbed far beyond what local median incomes can sustain. The short-term rental market has severely softened as well, breaking the financial models of hundreds of investors. Occupancy rates have slipped perilously close to 50%. As rental income aggressively declines, investor-owned properties are rapidly returning to the sales market. Astoria remains undeniably beautiful, but the underlying financial numbers tell a very dark story of skyrocketing carrying costs and a sharply reduced buyer pool. Number 6, Roseburg. For a very long stretch of recent history, pure affordability was Roseburg's absolute biggest selling point. Retirees on fixed incomes and value-seeking buyers often saw it as the ultimate budget-friendly alternative to Oregon's highly expensive metro areas. Back in 2019, a solid 3-bedroom home could easily be purchased for under $300,000. By the absolute peak in 2022, many of those exact same houses were hitting the market at over $400,000. Now, sitting in 2026, that sharp run-up in asset prices is running full speed into a hard, unforgiving economic ceiling. Local, working-class wages simply haven't kept up with asset inflation. Attempting to finance a home at today's strict mortgage rates can easily push the monthly payments well past $2,700, and that is before you even add in rising property taxes and spiking hazard insurance. At the exact same time that buyers are locked out, the active supply is building rapidly. Housing inventory has increased by roughly 30% compared to just last year. Homes are sitting completely stagnant on the market for up to 95 days. The growing vacancy problem becomes even more glaringly noticeable in the city's newer construction zones. Sprawling developments show entirely completed, move-in ready homes lingering unsold for months on end. Builders are now forced to roll out heavy financial incentives, including $20,000 directly toward the buyer's closing costs, just to generate a sliver of market momentum. Despite those very costly efforts, it is highly common to see several entirely empty, dark homes within the exact same subdivision. Home prices accelerated incredibly rapidly during the speculative boom years, yet the foundational local economy did not expand at anywhere near the same speed. Make sure you subscribe to Tax Hack Pro to understand exactly how these localized market crashes affect municipal tax revenues, and why these empty homes could actually trigger higher property taxes for the people who decide to stay. Number 5. Gresham. For many years, Gresham proudly carried the reputation of being the highly attainable, realistic entry point into the otherwise brutally expensive Portland metro housing market. Blue-collar buyers who felt completely priced out of the dense urban core often looked east to Gresham and found relative affordability. But during the massive pandemic surge, that window of affordability narrowed incredibly quickly and slammed shut. Basic townhomes violently climbed to $450,000 or more. In 2026, that wild optimism has definitively cooled. Housing inventory has expanded by nearly 25%, and active listings are sitting far longer than they ever did during the height of the cycle. A major, undeniable factor behind this massive slowdown is the severe shift in regional migration patterns. During the absolute boom, a steady stream of buyers leaving the dense inner Portland area flowed directly into surrounding suburbs like Gresham. That vital pipeline of buyers has weakened considerably. A massive number of households are leaving the state of Oregon altogether, deeply drawn to business-friendly states where median home prices are significantly lower for the exact same quality of life. At the exact same time, hidden ownership costs have continued rising relentlessly. Annual property taxes and complex insurance premiums are aggressively pushing total monthly payments far beyond what many first-time buyers can realistically manage. High-density condos and townhomes are feeling even more extreme financial pressure. Skyrocketing HOA fees, which are now frequently ranging from $350 to $450 per month just to cover the building's own rising insurance costs, are deeply discouraging entry-level buyers and actively prompting exhausted investors to list their properties for sale. Gresham perfectly illustrates a much broader, highly painful reality across the entire metro area. Asset prices accelerated much faster than local incomes. Number 4. Bend. For more than 10 solid years, the city of Bend stood as the ultimate symbol of Oregon's massive housing expansion and lifestyle brand. Its highly desirable outdoor culture, the steady wave of tech-driven California migration, and constant new construction completely combined to push home prices to extreme heights. The median home values in Bend violently leapt from a somewhat reasonable $420,000 to well over $720,000. By 2026, however, that powerful momentum has shifted into reverse. Across Deschutes County, active housing inventory has climbed roughly 32%. Homes are now painfully spending up to 120 days on the open market. Massive price reductions ranging from $40,000 to a staggering $100,000 are becoming highly routine, essentially wiping out years of supposed equity. The financial strain is especially visible in the sprawling, newer subdivisions on the east side of the city. Entire pristine rows of recently finished, highly upgraded homes remain completely empty. Builders have desperately responded with highly aggressive financial incentives, including massive mortgage rate buydowns worth up to $50,000 in cold cash. Yet, overall buyer absorption remains incredibly sluggish. At the absolute center of the issue is severe unaffordability. Financing an $800,000 home at today's strict interest rates can easily produce monthly mortgage payments exceeding $5,000. That extreme price point is simply mathematically unattainable for the vast majority of local workers. The once steady influx of wealthy tech buyers has slowed drastically. Some highly paid remote employees are being forced to return to major corporate metro areas, while others are actively opting for much more affordable, lower tax markets in states like Idaho or Montana. The available housing inventory is massively outpacing the actual number of qualified buyers, leaving highly noticeable, dark pockets of vacant homes in one of Oregon's formerly most sought-after destination cities. Number 3. Tillamook County. Along Oregon's famous northern coastline, the current housing slowdown is incredibly subtle, highly steady, and completely unmistakable. For years, these quiet coastal communities attracted wealthy retirees and aggressive second-home buyers who desperately wanted sweeping ocean views. That massive influx of demand pushed median home values rapidly up to over $400,000 in some specific premium areas. Now, deep into 2026, those highly elevated asset prices are violently colliding with strict economic limits. The median household income across much of Tillamook County still sits stubbornly near $60,000. Coastal insurance premiums have become a massively defining, deal-killing challenge. Highly updated federal flood risk assessments and new, highly sensitive wind exposure models have driven annual property premiums to a devastating $3,000 or more in certain red-line zones. For luxury properties located closer to the actual shoreline, the combined hazard and wind coverage can easily surpass $4,000 per year. Those massive sunk costs alone are instantly pushing many would-be buyers entirely out of contention. Active inventory is climbing steadily across communities such as Tillamook, Rockaway Beach, and Garibaldi. The highly lucrative vacation rental sector has also severely cooled from its historic peak. Annual Airbnb occupancy rates have slipped dangerously close to 50%. As rental income projections heavily decline and properties bleed cash, investor-owned properties are being hastily put up for sale. Significantly fewer buyers from the Portland metro area are purchasing expensive second homes along the coast, and some longtime residents are choosing to relocate further inland in search of significantly lower insurance and ongoing maintenance costs. Tillamook County now finds itself with vastly more available homes than its shrinking active buyer base can possibly absorb. Number 2. Beaverton. Long regarded by financial planners as one of the absolutely most stable, highly family-friendly economic pillars of the entire Portland metro area, Beaverton rarely ever faced serious property vacancy issues. The incredibly strong local employment, tied directly to major global corporate campuses like Nike, kept real estate demand rock steady for many years. By 2026, however, the financial landscape has completely changed. Housing inventory in Washington County has climbed roughly 25% compared to just last year. Highly desirable single-family homes are now painfully averaging up to 95 days on the open market. Severe price cuts of up to $50,000 are becoming increasingly common. Aggressively rising ownership costs are a massive, undeniable factor in this slowdown. Annual property taxes in many premium Beaverton neighborhoods now deeply exceed $6,000 to $8,000 annually, while property insurance premiums have violently surged 30% or more in some specific areas due to statewide rate adjustments. Mandatory HOA fees in heavily planned communities often range from a painful $350 to $500 per month. When strictly combined, these massive, non-negotiable hidden expenses can easily push total monthly housing costs on a mid-tier property well above $4,000 a month in pure cash flow. High-density condos and townhomes are facing even sharper financial challenges. Highly elevated HOA fees are deeply discouraging first-time homebuyers and actively prompting institutional investor-owned units to aggressively re-enter the sales market. Broad migration patterns are also heavily shifting against the city. Many well-qualified buyers are now skipping the metro area entirely in favor of highly business-friendly states with significantly lower housing costs and vastly lower income taxes. Number 1. Portland. At the absolute heart of Oregon's massive housing transformation sits Portland, the state's largest and most economically vital city. And in 2026, absolutely no other market in the entire state of Oregon has a higher, more devastating concentration of dark, vacant homes. Once considered one of the West Coast's most hyper-competitive real estate environments, the city has entirely shifted into a bleak landscape marked by rapidly rising inventory, agonizingly longer listing periods, and highly visible, undeniable vacancy across multiple premium neighborhoods. Between 2019 and 2022, median home prices violently jumped to nearly $570,000, reflecting massive, artificial equity gains. By 2026, that incredible momentum has completely reversed into a death spiral. Active market listings across the sprawling metro area have surged roughly 35%. Desirable homes that once easily sold in under 10 days now frequently sit completely untouched on the market for up to 120 days. Massive, wealth-destroying price reductions of $40,000 to $80,000 are increasingly common. The towering luxury condo buildings in the downtown core and the famous Pearl District show some of the absolute most striking, dystopian signs of this deep vacancy. If you look up, entire floors of these buildings are completely dark at night. Incredibly high, hidden ownership costs are deeply compounding this massive slowdown. HOA dues sitting well above $600 to $900 per month, combined directly with aggressively rising insurance assessments, have made long-term ownership far more expensive than any buyers ever anticipated. Investors who foolishly purchased these units at absolute peak prices are now desperately listing their properties at massive, six-figure discounts, further flooding the market. Macro migration trends are an absolutely massive factor in this collapse. In recent years, thousands of high-earning, tax-paying households have rapidly relocated to vastly lower-cost, business-friendly metros like Boise and Phoenix. Significantly fewer incoming wealthy buyers mean an aggressively shrinking pipeline of active, qualified demand. The multifamily rental sector perfectly mirrors this severe cooling trend, with actual vacancy rates in several massive buildings rising to a staggering 14%. Desperate landlord concessions are increasingly common. Meanwhile, the baseline insurance premiums and municipal property taxes continue to climb relentlessly. Portland now stands as the absolute clearest, most devastating example of a major housing market that aggressively expanded far faster than its underlying population and tax base could actually support, leaving behind a massive trail of negative equity and empty homes. Subscribe to Tax Hack Pro to ensure you never walk blindly into a real estate trap like this. We provide the forensic financial audits that the banks don't want you to see. Drop a comment below and let us know which of these Oregon ghost towns shocked you the most, and we will see you in the next investigation.